Thank you very much. Now, voice services is not something that's going to come eventually. Voice services are already here. I mean, think about it. You've got your handset, you've got voice services on a handset. There are voice services on TV remote controls now. There are voice services and, well, Amazon Echo, the thing you put in your living room. There are even voice services in your car. Imagine what we can do with virtual reality and augmented reality headsets and voice control. So it's not a matter of if you're going to design your own voice service. Really, it's a matter of when you're going to design your own voice service. And that's what I kind of want to talk to you about today, is kind of help you get started in thinking about that. And to help you get started, I want you to shut your eyes and imagine, okay, actually I don't really want you to shut your eyes. I've got a good black screen here that'll kind of be suitable for that. But I want you to imagine that you're in the United States and you've just driven your car into a fast food restaurant and you're going to order from the window of your car. Okay, good cuisine aside, just work with me on this one. The automated attendant, instead of being a nice human being at the other end, it's an automated service. The automated service asks you, hey, would you like chips or salad with your order? And you say, yeah, sure I would. Next thing you know, it does the audible equivalent of a blue screen. I got to imagine that's a really very rude sound when your audio service blue screens. But why does this happen? Should you not have said I would, or you should have just said yes or no? Well, the problem is that not all UI is created equal. The poor developer of this voice service did the right thing. I mean, he looked at a successful piece of software, the touch software that they use inside at the cashier stand, and he just took this UI and turned it into a voice service. I mean, that makes sense, right? Well, not really, because visually, we are forcing an either-or choice here. You've got to pick chips or you pick salad before you can actually continue. So here, yes isn't really an option. But with voice services, you can't force that quite so easily. And what he asked in the automation was a presumed or an assumed either or. And my gosh, people are going to say the craziest things. You don't have the same constraints that you do in this scenario. And my gosh, we learned a whole lot about what people are going to say. When we were designing voice services for Fire TV, it has a button you can search for TV and video and stuff. And the Alexa service, basically, which is your digital assistant that kind of lives and responds to your voice in your kitchen. One of the really important lessons we learned from that is that voice recognition is not the same thing as natural language understanding. Knowing what you said is a lot different than knowing what you meant. And the key, it turns out, in a conversation to figuring out what people meant are the interactions in that conversation. That's the key to real understanding. And what does that mean, really? Interactions are the bits of things that you use to interact with a customer. They're the things that I say, I wait, you say something back to me. They're those fragments that when you string them together actually become conversations. And conversations are those things that ultimately we're going to drive value to your customer through the application of your service. So what I want to do today is kind of go through what we've learned as key design principles for those voice interactions. The first principle is that interactions should provide high value. Wouldn't you like it if all of your interactions in voice provided high value? That would be kind of unique and fun. We'll dig into this a little bit later. Interactions should grow over time. They should actually get smarter and evolve a little bit as you learn about your customer. You should be able to speak in a very natural, conversational tone of voice to the service. The service should be able to understand what customers are saying most of the time. And of course, the response that a server gives you, a voice service gives you, should be very natural and easy to understand in a conversational tone. So let's start digging in at the top of that list. What does it mean for a voice service to deliver high value? Well, let's take a look at a utility chart here. I'm going to go ahead and start on the right-hand side with low utility. Browsing. Now, browsing is pretty much what it sounds like. You get this huge results set. In the worst case scenario, what you're going to do is read your poor customer a list of Google search results. Painful. Please don't do that. On the more useful side of browsing, you could make a voice service. Movie times, tell me all the new movies that are playing, and you'll get a list of all the new movies that are playing. Better than browsing is telling. You can do something easy like tell a quick cat fact, or you could tell something that's a little bit more of a constrained browse. Movie times, tell me all the movies playing at my favorite theater. Then we move on to searching, where you can apply multiple filters and search criteria to actually get some information that's potentially actionable. Movie times, tell me when The Martian is playing at my favorite movie theater. Now, all of this data is great, but it's got to be actionable. You need to be able to close the loop on this. If you don't close the loop and actually do something, where are you leaving your customer? Your customer has to stop what they're doing with your voice service and go find a screen somewhere to actually complete that interaction. That's a really lousy experience because they can't just go to a screen to complete that transaction. They've got to go to a screen and pretty much start all over again, go through all of those steps they've just gone through in a voice service to actually get to the point where they can do something. So think really hard about how your voice service can turn that actionable data into actual action. Something along the lines of movie times, purchase 2 adult tickets to the 7:30 showing of The Martian at my favorite theater. Now that's actually accomplished something for your customer, and that actually adds a tremendous amount of value to your service. Now, if we were doing this in a screen UI, I mean, that would be fairly simple, right? You have a bunch of movies. You pick one, it shows the theaters near you. You pick one, or maybe your favorite theater is saved. You see the show times, you pick one, and then you just simply increment the number of tickets you want, and you click buy. As humans, we're really good at processing a lot of visual information, sorting and filtering that very quickly. Not so much in voice. So in voice, very realistically, less is actually more. And we can start by getting a very targeted interaction and make that smarter and make that grow over time. For example, I said my favorite theater. Well, that presumes that my voice service has already learned what my favorite theater is. How awkward would it be if it had to ask me which theater I wanted to go to every time? That absolutely kind of breaks the rule of a interaction that can do more with less transaction time. One of the things that I worked with Capital One on getting smarter like that is actually account linking. With Capital One, they're a big US-based credit card and financial services company. They wanted to do things like checking the balance on your account, paying your credit card bill, and doing other high-value things like that. But the first thing they needed to do was link that voice service to your voice endpoint to your account. Doing that over the endpoint, over the voice service, one, was kind of awkward. Two, actually had some security issues using that endpoint to try and do validated work. So what you can do is, if your voice service platform actually enables things like OAuth authentication, you can go ahead and use their tool set to help you authenticate specific accounts. If not, you're going to have to build this yourself. And one of the things I suppose you could do is very much like a Bluetooth authentication. On a screen-based service, they can log in to an authenticated website or mobile app, and then they could have that mobile app send a Bluetooth-like pairing code to your voice endpoint. It reads you the number, you type the number in to the authenticated website. It now knows that this specific endpoint with this DSN number or this unique identifier is now associated with your account on this trusted site. So that crucial account linking is something that you need to give some thought to how you set up and how you prompt your user to set that up when they start the engagement with your voice service. Wonderful. And that's a key thing on how you help that evolve over time, because that gives you a focused, quick response that really takes care of making that business value that you're offering really front and center and really quick to access. Imagine how difficult it would be to get your account balance if you had to go through that authentication process every time you wanted to get your account balance. That's not really evolving over time, is it? So I want to take an example on how to do one thing and make it grow and actually start to do that thing really well by taking what is at first a long transaction and kind of compressing it into that shorter, smarter transaction. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a commute tool. It's going to help you plan your commute here in Amsterdam. We're going to build a voice service called Travel Buddy. Now, when you first launch Travel Buddy, it really doesn't know anything about you, does it? So when the user launches the service, we're going to ask ourselves, do we know where they're starting from or do we know where they're going? If not, we're going to go through the tree on the left and we're going to go ahead and get that information so that we can be smarter. So the user says, launch Travel Buddy. Travel Buddy says, do we know their starting or end point? Well, actually, no. So let's ask. Hi, I'm Travel Buddy. I'll tell you about your daily commute. Where are you starting from? Utrecht. Wonderful. Where are you going? Amsterdam. Hey, now that I know where you're coming from and going, I can tell you about your commute when you launch. Your current commute is 43 minutes because there's a 15-minute delay at Utrecht Central. That's a good high-value piece of information, but it took forever to get. But now that we know this, the next time a user launches the service, launch Travel Buddy, it can respond instantly with your commute is currently 22 minutes. Think about all the ways that you can learn about the things your customers typically ask for and use that to kind of shorten longer interactions to get that short, quick, high-value information transfer. Now, what would be better is if I could refill my travel card using Travel Buddy, or if I could buy a one-way or two-way ticket with Travel Buddy so they didn't have to find a different mechanism in which to do that. The next item on our list is you should be able to speak to the interface naturally and spontaneously, kind of the way that I'm talking to you guys right now. The last thing you want to do is give your customer a list of very specific words and a very specific structure of syntax that they have to remember. In other words, don't be like the voice services in my last car. Okay, I love having voice control in my car. I really do. But the way it worked for my car is you'd press the button on the steering wheel. Bing! What I want to say is play 97.7. That's easy. It would play a radio station for me, right? But no. Bing! Entertainment. Radio. Play 97.7. Oh, sorry, 97.7 FM. Why? The service couldn't figure out that 97.7 could only be an FM station. It's not a legal AM choice. Why does it force me to say FM? Well, because when they coded this out on a screen, well, that's just the way it worked, right? That was the logical flow. You started with your main menu, you went to entertainment, you went to radio, you chose AM or FM, and then you picked the station you wanted to listen to, right? Again, in a screen UI, that made sense. That is not how you naturally converse with someone when you're talking to them. What's worse is, now that I've just tuned to my radio station, I want to call a friend of mine. So I can say, call Bob Smith. What does the car tell me? Bob Smith is not a known radio station. Seriously? Oh, that's right. My car, exit. Exit. Telephone. Call Bob Smith. Please say the phone number that you wish to dial. Exit. Exit. Contacts. Bob Smith. Would you like to go? Yes, please call Bob Smith. Okay. Context switching, we'll get to context switching in a little bit, but that's really important to be able to hold that kind of a normal human conversation with any of your voice services. I mean, my car can do a lot more. I've forgotten everything else I can do with my car because I don't remember the explicit syntax it's asking me for. This point here on screen is really important. The only thing I should have to know is a general idea of what you do. You give me directions, you make phone calls, and you play music. Your service should be smart enough to figure out what my intent is from how I'm asking. When I ask you to play something, do I usually ask you to play directions somewhere? No, not really. When I want you to call someone, do I tell you to play Bob Smith? Well, unless he's a music artist, no, when I say call someone, I want you to phone someone. When I say play something, I want you to be in the entertainment subsystem. Your service needs to be smart enough to figure out the context that the user needs to be in and make that natural. Now, we're going to do that by removing the artificial syntax, and we're going to do that by making it possible for your service to recognize simple requests. And we're going to do that by making it easy to start a voice conversation. We call that invoking your service. Now, there are a handful of ways that you can invoke your voice service. With the Amazon Alexa device, the first thing you need to say is the wake word, Alexa, to make sure that the endpoint is actually listening to you. Okay, now it's game time. What do you want it to do? Do you want it to, ask your service to do something? Tell your service to do something. Use your service to do something, or start your service and then do something. So there are all kinds of verbs that you need to be able to recognize. Hopefully your platform will do this for you. If not, well, you've just bought writing this yourself. But this is very important in getting that natural language part to work. Once we've identified your service, then we're going to say, what do you want your service to do? Ask Travel Buddy to show me something. Ask, your service to do something, or start this and do the variable. What you end up with is, Alexa, use schedule update, or ask schedule update for my daily update. Now, people are unpredictable, and somebody's going to say, Alexa, start schedule update. You don't have your variable. What do? Do you panic? Do you close? No. You recognize, hey, thank you for starting the service. I was expecting you to pass me a variable. You didn't give me one, so I'm going to prompt you for that missing variable. And that's going to be another interaction, but it's not awkward because it becomes part of the conversation. Now, you can certainly do things awkwardly if you like. Odd phrasing. Again, a lot of developers who work with catalogs and structured tiers of catalogs will do this. Order, boots, hiking, size 12. Nobody actually talks like that. But if you're looking at an online store, that's probably how the catalog is organized. You really want to say order size 12 hiking boots. So try not to force your user into the data structure that you have on your back end. That's really unnatural. Also unnatural is making really very technically accurate but impossible to say things that your customer has to remember. Ask transportation service alerts for the current status of train 14. Nobody talks like that. What you want is, ask Travel Buddy about the train to Amsterdam. That needs to be something that you recognize and that you can actually express an acknowledgement for. That's understanding what your user is talking about. And that's why your service should understand most user requests. Now, in order for you to do that in a natural way, think of all the different ways that your customer can ask to pay a credit card bill. Make a payment, pay my bill, make the minimum payment, pay $100, pay $100, pay $100. There are all kinds of different ways that using natural language, someone can try and pay their credit card bill. You need to recognize all of those customer intents. And that's why we are going to have to work hard at building a customer intent framework. Again, hopefully your platform helps you build this framework. If not, you're buying this framework on your own. And you need to figure out all the different ways someone can ask for information. Tell me the schedule to Amsterdam. Ask for the schedule to Amsterdam. What's the schedule to Amsterdam? What is the schedule to Amsterdam? Or all of the ways that somebody could actually tell you what their intent was. Once you've mapped out every intent that your service can respond to, then it's not that hard to go from understanding each intent to figuring out the 80% rule of how people are going to go ahead and instantiate that most of the time. Now, if you do the 80-20 rule, invariably the first user is going to try something that falls out of the way you didn't catch. And that's why your interaction should respond in an appropriate way. The first and most important thing about responding in an appropriate way is making a timely response. Again, with a visual interface, this is a lot easier because we can put up a little wait screen. We can put up a little clock whose hands spin around if you're waiting for, say, a list of all your credit card transactions to come back. You know you're going to be waiting for that. But if someone's talking to you and they just stop, you can kind of get this kind of awkward silence. And without even a visual cue that they haven't forgotten about you, it gets really uncomfortable waiting. So if you know you're going to have to wait for a little bit, at least let the user know, hey, let me get that information for you. Please wait. And at least the customer knows that they haven't been forgotten. If they're waiting a long time, 10 seconds or something, maybe you want to throw in a quick fact about your service just so that they know that it's not dead air. I mean, when you're on the phone and your handset and you don't hear anything for 10 seconds, you check to see if the call has dropped, right? Same thing with a voice service. For Capital One, it meant keeping the APIs fast. And I know that kind of goes without saying, but quick show of hands, how many people actually write native Android code? Anyone actually write? Okay, I got a couple of people here. For you, you never write your business logic on the UI thread, do you? No, you don't put your business logic on the UI thread. Same thing with the voice interface. Don't put your business logic on the UI thread. Start the query, and then on a different thread, you can say, let me get that for you. Please wait. And that way, you're actually handling that in a much more graceful fashion. Now, after that, provide adequate error handling. And by that, I mean, I want you to follow a couple of rules. Never expose the user directly to what's gone wrong. Because you're gonna make one of two errors. You're either gonna tell the user you're stupid. Okay, not that any of you would actually ever tell the user, I'm sorry, that was really stupid. But users are sensitive around new technology. I mean, imagine this. Would you like chips or salad with that? Yes. Yes is an unrecognized response. Jeez. Back off, okay? That's a little intimidating. And when you say that, you've just told the user that they're stupid. So what can you do instead? I'm sorry, I don't recognize yes. Seriously? You don't recognize yes? I don't recognize seriously. You're stupid. I mean, no, it's a bad idea. Actually, that's kind of the second thing is helping the user think that you're stupid. So you can't say things like, I don't understand yes. Much better to say, I heard you say yes. Please say chips or salad. That's a much better, much more elegant way of dealing with that. So also check for missing variables when the customer asks you to buy movie tickets. If they haven't specified what time or what show, you can go back and ask for that. I said for my favorite theater. Did I tell you what my favorite theater was before? If so, I hope you remembered it. If not, you'll have to walk me through that routine where you go ahead and get that missing variable. If the variable is missing, of course, go ahead and prompt for it. So here's what, these are a lot of tools that you can use to build a voice service. Now, does that mean that you're all of a sudden able to turn steel into lead and lead into gold? Can you turn any user interface into a beautiful voice service? Maybe not. I don't think so. Take, for example, the medical form up here on the left. I don't know if you can see the question numbers from there, but that's actually question number 55 on the bottom. There are 54 other questions that are this dense. I mean, visually, it's easy to scan, read what you need to, and check the right boxes. Can you imagine a voice service reading this to you? Oh, painful. If someone figures out how to turn this into an elegant voice service, I will come and buy you dinner. I'm just not sure that's possible yet. So here are some of the characteristics of a really good voice interface. It's clear that the user needs to respond, the options are understood, and you can keep it brief. So let me kind of go back to where we started this conversation, when we're at the fast food restaurant. Maybe what it should really say is, please choose your side dish. You can say chips or salad. Holy cow. That's short, that's brief. I mean, it's even better than, would you like chips or salad? Please say chips or salad. Okay, that's really repetitive. That's not fun. But please choose your side dish. You can say chips or salad. You know I want you to say something. You know what your options are. And it's short, quick, and conversational. That's the right way to go ahead and solve these problems in voice services. It doesn't overwhelm the user. Although if you're doing something fairly big like paying a credit card bill that has the potential to be overwhelming, please make sure that they can say help, and then you can explain all of the options and what they can say. It's probably a good place to keep the users in context too. We talked about the context of a car app. Imagine the context of asking for your balance from Capital One. Did you mean your credit card balance or your checking account balance? How do you tell the user and let the user know where they are? You can say, the balance in your checking account is, or the balance on your credit card account is. And that helps make the users be sure that you know that they're in the right space, or helps them know that they're in the right space. Oh yeah, this. Okay, guys, if any of you read your terms of use to the user in audio, I will hunt you down, find you, and make you listen to this presentation again. Do not read legal stuff like terms of use to your customer. Please point them to a website. Direct them to some other thing with a screen where they can actually go ahead and agree to your EULA. Voice service is a terrible location to do that. Why is it terrible? Again, because you guys should be designing for the ear, not for the eye. The best way to do this, have a friend, talk through your user interface with your friend. If you need to show them something for it to make sense, you failed. Go back to something that you can talk about that makes sense. Now, Amazon didn't come up with all of these things by ourselves. We're clever, but we're not all that clever. We actually had a bunch of really good resources that we used by people who have been studying this problem for 15 and 20 years. Go ahead and take a picture of this. Some of these are actually really good resources. I also want you to take a picture of this because I'd like you to go to bit.ly Mike Hines and tell me whether or not this information was useful or whether the information wasn't so good, whether you like the presentation or not. It's just a quick 4-blank questionnaire, and you don't even need to put down your email address. Guys, thank you very much for your time today. Don't forget to vote in the Indie Prize Awards.